Magandang araw sa inyong lahat. Ang ating pag-uusapan ngayong araw ay tungkol sa global divides or yung tinatawag na Global North at Global South. So kung tatanungin, kung makikita niyo dito sa ating PowerPoint, may makikita tayo na merong city sa itaas at parang slum sa baba. So dito sa topic na to, ang objective natin ay ma-differentiate at maintindihan kung bakit nagkaroon ng Global North at Global South na siyang kumakarakterize dun sa konsepto ng global divide. So kung makikita nyo sa susunod nating slide, pinapakita dyan yung New York City, tsaka yung Makati City, kung saan parehas silang highly urbanized cities. Pero kung mapapansin nyo, ang New York belongs to the Global North kung tatawagin dahil nasa United States siya, at ang Makati ay nasa Global South dahil nasa Pilipinas siya. Ito pa ang isang example, manufacturing plant ng Ford na isang brand ng sasakyan sa Santa Rosa, Laguna, at yung isa naman ay sa Russia. Itong panghuli ay yung mga tela na hinabi mula sa Vietnam at yung sa Ifugao at Mindanao. Ngayon, yung susunod na slide, kung mapapansin ninyo, ay familiar naman tayo or nakakita na tayo kahit siguro isang beses ng isang Starbucks coffee na branch. So yung nasa left ay pinakikita yung Starbucks coffee sa Birmingham at yung kabila naman ay sa Metro Manila. Ano ang pinupunto nitong slide na ito? Na regardless of the divide between the global north and the global south, no, yung konsepto ng kapitalismo, yung konsepto ng economic capitalism ay nandoon, na regardless of the capacity or income status ng isang bansa, ang mga businesses, MNCs at PNCs still have the capacity to initiate firms, initiate business and collect profit regardless of the income status of the country. So ito naman, kilala nyo din ang famous na Coca-Cola sa Mexico at sa Philippines. At ito naman, pinakikita naman yung difference, similarity ng isang natural resource, mapapansin, isang natural resource na kung titignan ay pareho pero nasa magkaibang side ng globo or ng globe. So where does one see globalization? Actually, napag-uusapan natin to lagi nung nag-usap tayo ng what is globalization. It is woven into the fabric of everyday life. But according to Claudio 2014, the sameness brought by the cultural homogeneity could be observed. So ang para kay Claudio, kung tatanungin siya, ang konsepto ng globalization ay nakikita sa kung paanong nagkakaroon ng cultural homogeneity. So ang example niya dito ay yung cafes such as Starbucks. However, depending on where you are in the globe, the realities outside are still different. So kahit na sabihin nangyayari nga ang globalization dahil sa pagkakaroon ng pagkakapareho sa mga kultura katulad ng pag-consume ng goods ng Starbucks, makikita pa rin na malaki yung difference pagdating sa realidad na nararanasan ng mga individual. So, ang cultural homogeneity ay isang aspect ng cultural globalization, and it refers to the reduction in cultural diversity. So kapag sinabi mong homogeneous kasi ang ibig sabihin nun ay magkakapareho or similar. So kapag sinabi mong cultural homogeneity, ang ibig sabihin ay binabawasan mo yung pagkakaiba sa kultura ng ilang bansa through the popularization and diffusion of a wide array of cultural symbols. So ang example nga nito ay si Starbucks. So si Starbucks, kung mapapansin, yung pagiging popular niya represents an act of trying to homogenize culture, na ang pag-inom ng kape ay maaaring gawing pare-pareho sa lahat ng bansa sa pamamagitan ng pag-consume ng products from Starbucks. O'Connor defines cultural homogeneity as the process by which local cultures are transformed or absorbed by a dominant outside culture. So it could also be the breakdown of cultural barriers and the global assimilation of a single culture. So nabanggit ko na rin ito sa inyo dati na kapag nagkakaroon ng konsepto ng globalization, nagkakaroon ng breakdown of barriers. Now, in this case, pagdating sa cultural homogeneity, nagkakaroon ng breakdown of cultural barriers. Therefore, the acceptance of foreign culture and assimilation, pag sinabing assimilation, pagtanggap sa nasabing kultura bilang sarili natin. Kaya kung mapapansin, hindi man fully ini-embrace yung Starbucks, no, yung kultura ng Starbucks sa Pilipinas. Pero sa cities, no, yung cities na to which capitalism is heavily practiced, kung mapapansin nyo, compare dito sa probinsya kasi tayo, meron pa tayong konsepto ng agriculture, may konsepto, hindi pa tayo fully nag-e-embrace sa kapitalismo. Kaya mapapansin nyo, hindi pa, malayo pa sa atin yung pagtanaw sa Starbucks bilang isang kultura ng pag-inom ng kape. Unlike sa ibang mga lugar sa Maynila, na kung mapapansin nyo, kung meron kayong mga kaibigang taga Maynila, no, o kaya mga kakilalang taga Maynila, meron ng mga taong ini-embrace ang Starbucks bilang isang kultura ng pag-inom ng kape. Okay? So what symbolize the coexistence of Starbucks and the shanty? Yung shanty, ito yung parang kubo o barong-baro. So yung katulad ng sinabi ni Claudio, globalization creates undersides and it is incomplete. Okay? So the Starbucks represents the cultural homogeneity or the sharing and consuming of the same culture. Pero hindi mo maiaalis yung realidad outside of that culture, which is the shanty, which represents the tenacity of the local, which is unable to participate in the cosmopolitan culture. Ito yung parang ine-example ko, na hindi lahat ay niyayakap yung konsepto ng Starbucks na kultura dahil may mga taong nasa labas nito. Okay? Ito yung mga taong local, ito yung mga sinasabing, these are the people who cannot join the cosmopolitan or the city life, the city culture, because yung capacity nila to produce income is not based on capitalism alone. Okay? So tayo, katulad dito sa probinsya, ang ating kapasidad para magkaroon ng income, lalo na sa karamihan, ay pagsasaka, na hindi naman would not let you engage, would not be enough for you to engage in a culture that would lead to Starbucks. Hindi kailangang minom ng Starbucks na kape ng mga magsasaka as compared sa mga nasa city, which yung mga nasa city, di ba, nakikipag-meeting sila with one another, so they chose Starbucks as a place to which this meetings and associations are held. So may magkaiba yung konsepto ng realidad sa konsepto ng kultura. Okay, so this underdevelopment is a manifestation of unevenness of globalization. So doon mo makikita that globalization sips. No, ibig sabihin ng sips, pumapasok siya pero hindi even yung pagpasok niya sa isang bansa o sa isang lugar. Hindi even yung pagyakap ng tao dahil magkakaiba tayo ng realidad, lalo na sa mga bansang katulad natin na sinasabi nasa third world or nasa global south. So the unevenness of globalization, this is brought by forced liberalization and marketization of developing economies in globalization. So the unevenness is also brought by the neoliberalism and led by the IMF, World Bank, and the World Trade Organization, resulting for developing economies to more debts and more vulnerable to global economic shocks. So kaya nagkaroon ng unevenness kasi ang downside ng neoliberalism, ng global economic order, ay meron talagang bansa, mababanggit na rin to sa mga susunod, meron talagang mga bansa na magsasuffer in expense of the development of certain states, no? So the World Bank's and IMF's cure to economic crisis, which is belt tightening and austerity, are only imposed to developing economies. They do not apply to developed countries. So ang problema pa, the structural adjustments deepens inequality in the world's poorest countries. Poverty is actually globalized. So kung mapapansin, may double standard. Pag sinabi kasing double standard, yung isang bansa, like for example, yung mga nasa third world or nasa mga sinasabing global south, kapag sila yung mas hinihigpitan, sila yung mas merong kiniklaim na merong konsepto na they do not have the capacity to be developed, parang ganon. Kaya there's a point to which structural adjustments are expected of them. Pag sinabi mong structural adjustments, this refer to the government, no, how the government creates policies, all the laws that are being implemented ay babaguhin. Yun yung kapag sinabi mong structural adjustment. So kung mapapansin, hindi pinagagawa yan sa mga developed countries, kadalasan sa mga developing. Ang problema, when you force these adjustments to developing countries continuously, they will not have the capacity to have a consistency, no? Hindi nawawalan ng pagkakataon na magkaroon ng consistency ang isang developing country that would lead eventually to development. So parang ang ibig kong sabihin sa Tagalog, dahil madalas na nagbinabago, no, tinatry na i-adjust yung mga ginagawa ng isang developing country, instead of creating a consistent plan or pattern towards development, nagkakaroon ng iba't ibang pag-atake sa kung paano siya makakasurvive, no, sa mga utang, sa economic crisis, etc., etc. So, ang nangyayari, ang poverty ngayon, nag-globalize na rin, okay, because of this. Furthermore, globalization creates both affluence and poverty. So, pag sinabing affluence, wealth. So, dahil nga sa global economic order, merong mga talagang bansa na lumayaman, may mga bansang humihirap. The development or underdevelopment paradox of globalization makes the term global south clearer. So, dito makikita natin na yung pagkakaroon ng konsepto ng global north at global south ay nakabase dun sa konsepto ng development or underdevelopment paradox. Ibig sabihin, yung mga global north, no, bukod sa kaya sila kiniklaim to be richer is because they are more sided with the concept of development. Mas developed sila. While on the other hand, the global south, which are considered to be relatively poorer, are those countries that are still developing or in the path of development. So, inequalities necessitates the emergence of the concept of the global south. However, yung konsepto kasi ng development under development paradox always and will forever, no, claim to have or promote inequality. Hanggat meron kang konsepto ng global north at global south, this would always mean that there is inequality in the world, and globalization is actually promoting this inequality. Okay? So conceptualizing without defining, drawing the lines between the global north and global south allows the distinctions between the beneficiaries of uneven systems of global power. So the third worldism or non-alignment, though no longer used, exemplifies the underdevelopment of certain states or peoples and their lack of representation in global political processes. So in this case, ang sinasabi nito, yung mga nasa global north and global south, yung konsepto ng global south and the third world or the non-alignment represents the absence of the third world countries to a representation, to a voice in the world arena in terms of all of economic policies, political policies. Sa Tagalog, kung binasa niyo yung reading na ipinost ko together with this topic, yung konsepto that the countries in the global south are primarily pro forma. Pag sinabi mong pro forma countries or de facto lamang, they belong on the platforms like for example World Bank, United Nations, etc. But they do not have the actual voice to create and implement or supplement or amend policies. So kaya kung mapapansin nyo dun sa topic natin na United Nations, sa United Nations Security Council, which is the most powerful group, no, in the world, walang ni isang member nun that belongs in the global south kung tatawagin. Or actually, karamihan sa mga bansang nandoon ay yung mga tinatawag na yung nasa pinaka-developed na countries na or nasa fraction ng pinakamayayamang mga bansa. So kung mapapansin, we are voiceless in for that matter. Hindi tayo, although pwede kang masama dun sa 10 members na binoboto every 2 years, pero ang problema, wala kang magiging yung capacity mo to create change will be lessened because you only have 2 years in the United Nations Security Council. So kunwari, Philippines, meron tayong concern in relation to security katulad sa Abu Sayyaf, we would not have enough time to push for amendments or create international laws against groups like Abu Sayyaf because we only have 2 years in the United Nations Security Council. And ang isa pang issue doon, we do the five permanent countries have the veto power. So anytime they want, they can veto the amendment or the creation of the laws being proposed by the Philippines. So imagine that in the scale of not just the Philippines but all countries in the third world or in the global south. Kaya sinasabi dito na wala kasing voice ang mga nasa third world when it comes to the creation of policies that would allow them to be developed. So parang ang sinasabi, paano ka magiging develop if in the first place hindi ka makagawa ng policies or ng programs to help yourself to be developed because it is being hoarded or being the power lies more on those already developed countries. Okay. So the terms Global South and Global North represents the global difference. The important question now is not what is global, but whom and under what conditions the Global South becomes relevant. Kasi actually, ang konsepto ng Global South ay importante lamang sa mga nasa Global South. The Global North, the developed countries, do not actually recognize the fact that the Global South or the third world countries are those who are developing or are poorer, or even if they are recognizing that, it's because they need to create development opportunities for us in order for us to have the capacity to purchase the goods that they are promoting. So imagine this, no? The global north, the developed countries would only have an effect or would only be interested in the development of countries in the global south if it will also benefit them. That's the sad reality of globalization. Na kung mapapansin, kaya mo gustuhin na yung isa mong kaklase ay maging mas magkaroon ng matuto, no, or magkaroon ng kaalaman tungkol sa subject ay para pag nagkaroon ng group quiz ay makatulong siya sa'yo. But not necessarily in order to improve the kaklase as a student, no? Yun ang mahirap. Yun ang hindi tayo, kaya ang development ng mga nasa global south or the third world countries are not in full track, no? Ibig sabihin hindi siya nagtutuloy, hindi siya nagiging consistent because it's dependent on how much the developed country would need, no, the global south to be developed. Hanggang saan lang nila kailangan na maging developed tayo. Okay. So, the global south is not a directional designation or a point due from a fixed north. It is a symbolic designation meant to capture the semblance of cohesion that emerged when former colonial entities engaged in political projects of the colonization and move towards the realization of a post-colonial international order. So, yung Global South, hindi siya isang direction. So, it actually pertains more on the states that were colonized by during the imperialist period and were left hanging, no? We're left hanging and trying to develop in the present context. So the term third world, developing countries, and the global south are always to represent interstate inequalities. Actually, I would like you to always remember this. The mere fact that we are talking or using the terms the third world, developing and developed, and global north and global south represent that in the first place, there is inequality. So, ano ang point? Ang sinasabi dito, we need to at least, na hindi naman natin kayang tanggalin ang inequality because it will always be there. but we cannot do something in order to lessen the gap between those who are relatively more developed and the relatively less developed. Kasi ang idea is if only a sector of or only a group of the world remains developed and the other portion or the majority remains less developed, the capacity to gain power or the power will always remain to a certain group of individuals, and that in itself would still result to more inequalities. So sa Tagalog, kung tatagalogin natin, habang ang gap sa developed and less developed countries ay malaki, yung capacity na magkaroon ng mas maraming inequalities in terms of economic, political, cultural, social, no, aspects will continue. Mas dumadami ngayon yung inequalities that will pursue. Kaya ang assumption is that yes, you cannot go away with inequalities because it will always be there, but you can do something in order to lessen the gap in relation to these inequalities in order to prevent more inequalities in the future. Lalo na katulad yan, kapag kunwari kayo ay nagkaroon ng mga anak, do you want them to live in a world where more inequalities are present than today? Sabihin, yung mga nararanasan nating inequalities today would be more in the future. No? Di ba, as much as possible, you would want your children to live in a world where there are less inequalities and more opportunities being presented to them as individuals. So, yun yung challenge, actually. Okay. So, what is occluded when we emphasize the state? So, ibig sabihin occluded, kung may included, may occluded, yung hindi kasali. There are forms of power inequality that cannot be reduced to discussions of state politics. Number 2, not all of the formal colonial entities are states. Example, Aboriginal Australia is conceived by Raewyn Connell as part of the Global South even if it formally belongs to a wealthy developed state. So, kung mapapansin, yung konsepto din ng Global North and Global South is also related to how we view the state. In relation to this, yung konsepto ng Estado, the sinasabi dito is sa number 1, the forms of power inequality cannot be reduced to discussions of state politics. So yung konsepto ng pagkakaroon ng may mga bansang mas malalakas or merong bansang mas may kapangyarihan economically and politically cannot be resolved in state politics. Wala na tayong magagawa doon. We cannot do anything about the United States being a global power or China being a global power in its right. No? Yun yung sinasabi sa number 1. Sa number 2, may mga bansa kasi na kung mapapansin ay hindi pa sila colonial entities, ay hindi pa sila actually state. Aboriginal Australia, this is a part of Australia. Pero it belongs to the wealthy developed state. No? So kung mapapansin, nasa Global South siya, nasa baba siya nung pero hindi talaga siya part ng Global South. Next, the process of globalization places into question geographically bound conceptions of poverty and equality. Various forms of inequalities cut across national borders are, as Marx would claim, the proletariat has no country. So kung makikita nyo dito sa file na ito or document na ito yung sinasabing Global North and Global South at yung sinasabing na geographically bounded states. So the concept of a gap between the Global North and the Global South in terms of development and wealth can be seen through the Brandt line developed in the 1980s as a way of showing how the world was geographically split into relatively richer and poorer nations. So kung makikita nyo dito sa model na ito, richer countries are almost all located in the Northern Hemisphere with the exception of Australia and New Zealand. So yun yung sinasabi ni Raewyn Cowell na when it comes to the concept, geographically bounded concept, Aboriginal Australia is actually part of the Global North kung tutuusin. Pero kasi nasa South yung geographic nasa baba kasi siya ng globo. Poorer countries are mostly located in tropical regions and in the southern hemisphere. So kung mapapansin naman dito, However, yun nga, ito kasama yung mga Philippines, South America, etc. However, over time, it was realized that this view was too simplistic. At totoo naman yun. Countries such as Argentina, Malaysia, Singapore, for that matter, and Botswana all have above global average GDP per capita, yet still appear in the global south. Conversely, countries such as Ukraine appear to be now amongst a poorer set of countries by the same measure. So kung mapapansin, for the longest time, ito yung nag-strengthen or nag-strengthen ng konsepto ng global north and global south. Kasi kahit na sabihin yung may ilan man na mahirap sa northern hemisphere, yung idea that majority of nations that belong in the northern hemisphere are relatively more developed compared dun sa mga nasa baba, strengthens the argument na merong divide, merong division between certain countries. Thus, there's also inequality between these countries, no? Not just because of their geographical location, but because most of those countries or nations in the northern hemisphere are commonly also the countries that served as colonizers or imperialists during the period of imperialism. So kadalasan din, yung mga nasa baba, yung mga less developed countries, or yung mga members ng Global South are commonly the countries that were colonized during the colonial period and were left developing up until this present time. Okay? So, but why must we keep analyzing states and interstate inequalities? The decolonization process produced states. So, yung nangyaring pag-decolonize ng mga bansa result to states that are now countries that are inadequately represented in global organizations like the World Trade Organizations. So yung katulad dun sa binigay kong isang activity na nagbigay ako, nag-assign ako sa inyo ng mga certain na mga countries. Kung mapapansin nyo, may mga countries dun, lalo na yung mga South African nations, na they were these countries are the ones na yung pinaka ngayon pa lang nag-start na ma-decolonize or na-decolonize na sila a long time before, but their sovereignty or yung independence nila are just become or are just developing as of present. So kaya yung capacity nila to be represented in groups such as the World Trade Organization ay mas mababa kasi nga in itself, sila, yung sarili pa lang nila mismo ay tinatry pa lang nilang i-form at i-hold or i-mold. Okay? Solutions to problems brought by globalization are largely forwarded and articulated on a state level. As Hobsbawm pointed out, the state remains a mechanism for social transfer. Itong tatandaan natin mga kaibigan. Ang konsepto ng estado or the state, dito magkakaroon ng realization ng importansya ng estado. Kasi in relation to the global division or the global divide, it is only within the state that we can do something about the inequalities. So lalo na kung wala ka kasing independent na estado, how would you expect that your country will be developed and will be taken seriously in the global arena if you do not have the sovereignty to decide on your own? Okay? So in this case, the only way to gain development and to gain capacity for development is to have a strong state that could enter the global arena and forge agreements with countries in order to promote equality between states. Okay? So the phenomena largely considered transnational are the results of state policies. Acts of deterritorialization such as labor migration needs to be placed in the context of the state. Kaya ngayong pagpunta ng mga Pilipino sa ibang bansa should remain in the power of the Philippines and the Philippine government because this would entail our capacity as well in promoting equality between workers in the Philippines and other countries. So kapag tayo ay if we have a weak state that cannot promote the rights of Filipinos abroad, magkakaroon ng continuous na inequality, pang-aabuso or abuse to our fellow Filipinos abroad in terms of labor. So the state will continue to be an important unit of analysis despite the deterritorializing effect of globalization. So regardless of the fact that globalization renders the breakdown of geographical barriers. Kahit na sinasabing ang globalization breaks down barriers, no, actual geographic barriers, it is still it remains important because it is only within the state that we can do something about inequalities in the world arena. So, kung mapapansin nyo, kung walang sovereignty or independence ang Pilipinas from, let's say, for example, the United States, imagine that if Filipinos would go to the United States and work there, and because we are not sovereign, kunwari under pa rin tayo sa Amerika, we will not be put in place of Americans, no? So kunwari nagkaroon ng conflict, abuse between a Filipino worker and an American landlord or an American employer. So mapapansin nyo, ipopromote ba ng United States ang rights ng Pilipino over the American if we do not have the sovereign in the first place? Kung wala tayong independence in the first place, as sinasabi ko, kung nanatili tayong parte ng Amerika at hindi tayo na-decolonize, we do not have our own sovereignty and independence, mahirap na mag-expect that the inequalities that could possibly be done to our fellow men will be prioritized by the colonizers. Siyempre hindi nila ipopromote yung konsepto na uunahin nila yung Pilipino over dun sa Amerikano, when in the first place, the United States will always promote the rights of its citizens. So yun lang sinasabi ko, that the main thing is that we still that because we have sovereignty and independence, we can work away, no? We can do something about those inequalities. So the Global South is a product of Western imagination. It is the French mission civilatrice that held that colonization was a necessary tool for the spread of civilization. In the Philippines, the notion of benevolent assimilation by the Americans represents the creation of the global inequality, and the Global South continues to be imagined and reimagined by those who dominate it. So in this case, maraming nagsasabi na yung konsepto ng Global South was a product of Western imagination, na parang in order to create a distinction, but not a recognition. That's different. Distinction, ibig sabihin para maihiwalay, no? Magkaroon ng pagkakaiba between those who are developed and less developed. However, but not a recognition that these states would have the capacity to belong, no? Hindi sila, parang yun ang ibig sabihin. The Philippines, benevolent assimilation was during the American colonial period. So it is the future control, disposition, and government of the Philippine Islands that were ceded to the United States, and that the military government is to be the whole of the ceded territory. So ito yung panahon kung saan ang Pilipinas ay napasailalim sa mga Amerikano, at ang sinasabi nga, kaya siya benevolent assimilation, ay patuloy pa rin tayong napapasailalim sa impluensya at control ng mga Amerikano. So if representations of global marginality arise partially as a reaction to universalist ideologies, the Global South is now increasingly defining itself against globalism. So maraming mga developing countries ngayon ang nagsasabi nga that globalization is actually bad for developing countries because globalization in itself continues to widen the gap between those who are rich and the poor, no? So how do people from the Global South responded to colonialism and other linear versions of modernity? So through solidarity. It is only through solidarity that the members of the Global South can achieve something. Kaya nga, yung susunod na topic, Asian regionalism. Ano ngayon ang nangyayari sa konsepto ng solidarity na yun? Are this being achieved, or are we still pursuing individual state interest and concerns? Okay. So the third worldism began as a common resistance to the new forms of colonialism. The developing countries were not just wary of first world imperialism, but even of communist colonialism. So today, the term is no longer tenable. Actually, kapag nagbasa kayo ng mga literature Although madalas pa rin ginagamit yung third world, but it is not as commonly used as before. No? Kasi as much as possible, the third world notion is not preferred, no? Lalo na mas preferred yung concept ng developed and developing countries. Kasi at least doon, yung konsepto ng developing connotes a certain hope, while the third world creates a certain ranking of that there is a first and a second world. Okay. So the Global South has routinely provided models of resistance for the world, and it continues to do so. For example, radical notions of climate justice are being voiced out by those in the Global South, but are shrugged down or not being paid attention by the Global North, who are actually the promoters of pollution. So kung mapapansin, dito rin nakikita yung divide between the North and the South, kasi yung the South promotes yung konsepto ng climate justice, because the effects of climate problems or environmental problems would have a much stronger impact sa mga developing countries. Katulad ng nangyari sa atin, yung effect ng mga typhoons, strong typhoons, no? So yung effect ng mga ganon ay mas malakas yung impact sa atin ng mga developing as compared to developed countries. And our capacity to bounce back from these disasters are less than those from the north. So as global problems intensify, it becomes more necessary for people in the north to support alternatives from the south. The Global South as a symbol and metaphor is not only relevant for those who live in countries traditionally associated with it. The South is continuously globalized. The Global South is an emergent and provisional internationalism. As much as the global or the developing countries would like to pause globalization, no, it is only also with globalization that we can move forward or be developed. So, kaya nga 'di ba, gaya ng nasabi sa mga naunang lesson, ang globalization ay parang double-edged sword. It promotes inequality between states, but at the same time, it is also the only way for developing countries to find avenues for development. So the Global South, which unfolds relative to struggles on the ground, reconfigures itself depending on the contours of global struggles. Solidarities in the Global South are based on common shifting causes. So kung mapapansin, malaki yung challenge sa Global South because these are countries that are trying to find themselves state identity, to learn who they really are, what are their interests, how they can promote development. So in the case of a globalized world, it is with the Global South, the challenge for the Global South is to find that state identity and at the same time find causes and the independence and strength to push for lesser inequalities with those from the Global North. Okay. So dun sa sinend or pinost ko sa group natin sa Google Classroom, makikita nyo itong map na ito which represents the world map of the first, second, and the third world. So the map shows the countries of the United States, allied countries of the first world in green, and the communist states in red, and the third world in yellow. So European neutral states in white, and the countries which have been communist nations for a short period in light red. So kung mapapansin, ito ay isang pagpapakita kung paanong yung konsepto kasi ng develop and developing, global north and global south, the concept of the first, second, and third world, these are all distinctions that promote inequalities or to create differentiation between countries, no? Okay. So basahin nyo na lang yung mga information na nakalagay, but how is the first world, second world, and third world being defined? So, kaya nagkaroon ng worlds as a distinction is because after the Second World War, the world split into two major geopolitical blocks, which is and the spheres of influence with conflicting political views about government and the right. So, ito yung sinasabing democracy versus communism. Yun yung sinasabing two major geopolitical blocks. Yung first world na tinatawag are the block of democratic industrialized countries within the American sphere of influence, which are also known as the first world. Sometimes they are also called as the West. The second world now is the Eastern Bloc or the East, which are formed by communist socialist states, where the political and economic power should come from the up to now oppress peasants and workers. So, nabanggit ko na rin to before, yung democratic industrialized countries basically promotes the capitalist way of thinking, while the communist socialist states promote communism o yung konsepto that everything should be based on government and equality among citizens. So yung third world, the remaining 3/4 of the world population are the countries that did not belong to the either bloc or were called the third world. So kung mapapansin, the creation of the first world, second world, and third world distinction was not actually about or was not really about the concept of wealth. No? It's more about the two major geopolitical blocks of communism and democracy and countries that do not associate or identify themselves with that. You know, yung concept ng third world, yung mga countries na nasa sinasabing yellow, kaya sila, they cannot identify themselves during after the Second World War to either a democratic or a communist state is because these are commonly the states that were colonized or just being freed from colonization. Ibig sabihin sa Tagalog, itong mga bansa nito, ito yung mga bansang kinolonize or sila yung mga bansang kakakuha pa lang ng independence from colonizers. So they cannot fully identify themselves as either democratic or communist. Okay. So, asan na ba yun? Yung binabanggit dito, yung creation, ito. The origin of the terminology is unclear, but in 1952, Alfred Sauvy, a French demographer, wrote in an article in the French magazine which ended by comparing the third world with the third estate. Kasi ang mga French or mga taga-France, actually more European people are very particular with estates. Merong first estate, second estate, third estate. So estates refer to lands, no, that could be owned by landowners. So yung konsepto, the term first world refers to the developed capitalist industrial countries generally aligned with the NATO and the United States. So in relation, the bloc of countries aligned with the United States after the World War II, which had more or less common political and economic interests, includes also the countries of North America and Western Europe, Japan, South Korea, and Australia. So the second world naman refers to the communist socialist or the less industrialized states known as the Eastern Bloc. So meron ding mga bansang kasama dito from, like for example, Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia, which are in Asia, but also regarded themselves as part of the second world. Tapos the third world was all the other countries. So ito yung mga kadalasang less developed countries now. Pero kung mapapansin nyo, Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia are part of the global south, but in the distinction of the first, second, and third world, they belong in the second world because they identify themselves as communist socialist. So kung mapapansin, may mga differences din yung distinction. Hindi lahat ng nasa global south ay member ng third world at hindi rin lahat ng nasa global north ay member ng first or second world. Kasi nga it's based on how you identify yourselves between the blocks of communism and democracy. So I hope you learned something. Please read the reading. So kung mapapansin, meron din tayong isang readings dito, yung tungkol din sa konsepto ng dapat magkaroon ng interdependence between countries, between the north and the south. Itong reading na ito na sinulat ni Ismail Sharif in 1997, which actually is a good read because I want you to go beyond what Raywin Cowell was saying. So kung mapapansin dito, dito binanggit yung konsepto na on balance, the economic relationship is actually loop-sided in the favor of the affluent o yung mayayamang bansa in the north, which is not acceptable in a new evolving international economic order. So if we are to pursue a more balanced economic order, global economic order, it is apparent na dapat magkaroon ng lesser gap between the affluent or the members of the global north and the less affluent and the members of the global south. So it is, paano yun ma-achieve? It only comes with it is only through interdependence that ibig sabihin ng interdependence, magkaroon nga ng solidarity, magkaroon ng pagtutulungan between those from the south and actually also from the north, magkaroon ng solidarity between these countries in order to lessen the gap. So yun, please read this article as well. So I hope you learned something from this discussion. If you have questions, feel free to send me an email or comment in the discussion below. And please look forward to my next video discussion in relation to Asian regionalism. Thank you and stay safe, everyone.